The silent return. The grand assembly of the Galactic Concord buzzed with activity as representatives from 100 worlds gathered for their centennial review. High Arbiter Xylox, his crystalline carapace gleaming under the chamber's lights, called the session to order with a resonant thrum from his ceremonial staff. We mark today 5 centuries of peace and prosperity under the Concord's guidance, Xylox announced, his translator projecting his clicking speech into the common tongue. Our coalition has brought stability to formerly chaotic sectors and technological advancement to dozens of species. Ambassador Thela of the Meridian Cluster nodded in agreement, her luminescent tendrils pulsing with approval. Like most in the chamber, she had been raised on stories of the Concord's noble founding and its unwavering commitment to galactic harmony. None of them spoke of Earth. None of them mentioned humanity. To the assembled delegates, humans were a footnote in galactic history, an aggressive, unpredictable species that had challenged the Concord's authority and paid the ultimate price. The coordinated strikes against Earth and its colonies had been thorough, devastating. The official record stated that no humans had survived the purge. That had been 500 years ago. Earth was now just a cautionary tale, a lesson in the consequences of defying the Concord's collective will. As the assembly continued their self-congratulatory speeches, a junior communications officer burst into the chamber, disrupting the carefully choreographed proceedings. The young Volarian approached High Arbiter Xylox, whispered urgently in his ear, then quickly retreated. Xylox's compound eyes widened imperceptibly. "The assembly will recess for 1 hour," he announced abruptly, causing a ripple of confusion among the delegates. In the private council chamber, the Concord's ruling circle gathered around a holographic display. This signal was detected emanating from Sector 12, explained Admiral Krell, his scaled fingers manipulating the projection. "Initially, we dismissed it as background radiation, but pattern analysis indicates it's an artificial transmission." Sector 12. Questioned Delegate Moria. "There are no inhabited systems in that region." A heavy silence fell over the room. Sector 12 contains Sol, Xylox stated flatly. "The human home system." The transmission played, a simple repeating sequence of mathematical constants, followed by words in an ancient language none had heard spoken in centuries. "We remember." "It must be an automated system," Krell insisted. "Some relic that's finally reactivated after all this time." Xylox wasn't convinced. "Dispatch a reconnaissance fleet. Minimum presence, maximum stealth. I want to know what's generating this signal." 3 days later, the reconnaissance fleet approached the outer boundaries of the Sol system. Captain Thrix, a veteran explorer with an exemplary service record, led the mission personally. As the ships navigated through the debris field that had once been the planet Neptune, collateral damage from the final assault on Earth, their sensors detected unusual energy signatures. "These readings don't match any known technology in our database," reported the science officer, her antennae twitching with confusion. "Maintain stealth protocols," Fricks ordered. "Continue approach." As they moved deeper into the system, the debris became denser, forming an almost impenetrable barrier around what had once been humanity's home planet. The fleet's advanced sensors struggled to penetrate this artificial cloud. "It appears to be deliberate," the science officer noted. "The debris field is structured, Captain. It's a shield." Before Thrix could respond, the ship's systems suddenly powered down. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the bridge in an eerie red glow. "Status report," Thrix demanded. "Unknown energy pulse," replied his first officer. "All ships in the fleet are affected." "We're dead in space, Captain." Through the viewports, Thrix watched as the debris field before them began to shift, particles moving with purpose, creating a passage. Through this newly formed corridor, a vessel emerged, sleek, darkened, with no visible propulsion system. It was unlike any ship Thrix had ever seen. "Scans?" he asked quietly. "Impossible," came the reply. "Our sensors can't penetrate its hull." The mysterious ship drew closer until it dominated their view. Then, A transmission cut through their disabled communication system. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Concord," came a voice speaking perfect galactic standard. "We've been expecting you." Thrix felt a chill run down his spine. "Identify yourself," he demanded, trying to maintain some semblance of authority. A holographic projection materialized on the bridge, a bipedal figure with smooth skin and forward-facing eyes. A human. "I am Admiral Elara Hayes of the Turan Renaissance Fleet," the figure stated calmly. "Welcome back to Earth. It's been a while since your kind visited. Last time, as I recall, you came with rather different intentions." Impossible. Humans were extinct. The Concord had ensured that. Earth was cleansed 5 centuries ago, Thrix stated, repeating what every schoolchild in the galaxy knew to be true. No humans survived. Hayes smiled, a gesture that didn't reach her eyes. "Is that what they told you? How fascinating. Your education has been incomplete." The hologram expanded, showing the view beyond the debris field. Earth, not a barren wasteland, but a thriving world. Cities glittered across its surface, and in orbit, shipyards stretched for thousands of kilometers, constructing vessels similar to the one before them. "The attack on Earth was devastating," Hayes continued. "But humans have always excelled at one thing above all others: survival. While your Concord celebrated our extinction, we rebuilt. Underground at first, then in the shadows of the ruined cities, and finally, beneath the very debris you used to entomb us. We used your discarded technology, improved upon it, and created something new." "The Concord will," Thrix began. "The Concord will listen," Hayes interrupted. "For 5 centuries, we have watched and waited. We've observed your expansion, monitored your communications, studied your weaknesses. We could have struck at any time, but we wanted to be certain. Certain that when we revealed ourselves, there would be no doubt about the outcome." Another ship emerged from the debris field, then another and another. Soon, hundreds of vessels surrounded the reconnaissance fleet, each one bearing the insignia of the Turan Renaissance. "Your fleet will be allowed to return to deliver our message," Hayes stated. "Tell your Concord that humanity has not forgotten. We remember the billions who died. We remember the worlds you burned. And we are coming to collect that debt." As Thrix watched in stunned silence, one of the human vessels approached a Concord outpost at the edge of the system, a monitoring station they had passed on their approach. With frightening precision, the ship fired a single energy pulse. The station, designed to withstand concentrated bombardment, disintegrated instantly. "That was a fraction of our capability," Hayes noted dispassionately. "Your ships are being released now. I suggest you make haste. The clock is ticking." The hologram disappeared, and power returned to the fleet's systems. As Thrix ordered an immediate retreat, he couldn't shake the image of Earth, alive and thriving, from his mind. Back at the Concord headquarters, the reconnaissance fleet's report spread panic through the assembly. Emergency sessions were called, military assets were mobilized, and ancient defense protocols were dusted off. "This is impossible," insisted General Drax, head of Concord Security. "No species could have recovered so quickly, let alone advanced beyond our technology." "The evidence is undeniable," Xylox countered. "Humanity not only survived, but has been evolving in isolation, driven by something we cannot comprehend." "Vengeance," offered Ambassador Thela quietly. "They are driven by vengeance." As the Concord leadership debated their response, the first reports of attacks began to arrive. A major shipyard in the Centauri sector, destroyed. A communications hub in the Rigel system, disabled. Precise, strategic strikes against Concord infrastructure, each target selected for maximum impact with minimal casualties. The humans weren't just launching a war, they were sending a message. 3 days after the reconnaissance fleet's return, a transmission was broadcast simultaneously to every Concord world. On screens across the galaxy, Admiral Hayes appeared, her expression resolute. "People of the Galactic Concord, I speak to you directly because your leaders have hidden the truth. 5 centuries ago, the Concord attempted to eradicate humanity because we refused to surrender our sovereignty. They failed. We survived. We rebuilt. And now we have returned. We do not seek to destroy you as you once sought to destroy us. But the era of the Concord's unchallenged rule is over. Your leaders have 48 hours to respond to our terms. The time for reckoning has come. As the message ended, the galaxy held its breath, caught between the history they had been taught and the reality now confronting them. Humanity had returned from the grave, and the foundations of the Concord were beginning to crumble. The reckoning. The Concord War Council convened in a reinforced bunker deep beneath their headquarters. Reports of human strikes against strategic targets flooded in faster than they could process them. The precision of the attacks left no doubt. The humans had intimate knowledge of Concord infrastructure and security protocols. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Vex, slamming his appendage against the table. How could they know our defensive configuration so thoroughly? Admiral Krell's expression was grim. We've detected quantum entanglement signatures in our networks. They've been inside our systems for years, possibly decades. Every security update, every military deployment, every diplomatic communication, they've seen it all. High Arbiter Zylock stared at the tactical display, watching as another Concord outpost went dark. What are their terms? A communications officer approached, holding a data crystal. Just received, sir, the human demands. The terms were projected for all to see. Immediate recognition of Terra and all former human colonies as sovereign independent territory. Reparations for the attempted genocide of humanity. Public acknowledgement of the Concord's crimes against humanity. Dissolution of the current Concord leadership structure. Integration of human representatives into a new galactic governing body. Preposterous, spat General Drax. They expect us to surrender our authority, to admit defeat when they've barely begun their assault. Have you been watching the same reports I have? Krell countered. They've disabled our primary defense networks in 3 sectors without a single casualty on their side. This isn't the beginning of their assault. It's a demonstration. Zylock studied the terms again. They could have demanded our complete surrender. They could have targeted population centers. Why haven't they? The question hung in the air, unanswered. At that moment, the bunker's alarms blared. Security personnel rushed to defensive positions as the main door to the council chamber opened, revealing a single human woman in a simple gray uniform. Admiral Hayes, Zylox recognized her from the broadcasts. How did you? Your security is impressive, Hayes interrupted, walking calmly to the center of the room despite weapons trained on her from all directions. For technology that's 5 centuries out of date. She placed a small device on the table, and it projected a holographic display of Earth, not as it was now, but as it had been during the Concord's attack. The Council watched in stunned silence as the bombardment unfolded, cities burning, oceans boiling. The systematic extermination of a species played out before them. 3 billion dead in the first hour, Hayes narrated, her voice steady. Another 2 billion in the ensuing collapse. We had no defense against your weapons. We had no warning of your betrayal. The hologram shifted, showing underground bunkers where survivors huddled, then the slow rebuilding of civilization beneath the surface. We adapted. We evolved. We united as never before because we understood something your Concord never has. True strength comes not from domination, but from survival against impossible odds. The images changed again, showing human ships investigating abandoned Concord outposts, salvaging technology, reverse engineering weapons and defenses. For generations, we existed in the shadows of your empire. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, understood your weaknesses. We became the ghosts in your machines, watching and waiting for the right moment. With a gesture, Hayes changed the display to the present, the full extent of the human fleet, far larger than what they had revealed initially, positioned throughout Concord space. We could have struck at any time in the last century. We could have eradicated the Concord as you tried to eradicate us, but that would make us no better than you. Then what do you want? Xylox asked, his voice barely audible. Justice, Hayes replied simply. And a new beginning. She approached Xylox directly, ignoring the weapons still pointed at her. 5 centuries ago, humanity was divided, fractious. The Concord saw our potential and feared it. You struck because you believed that given time, we would surpass you. You were right. The device on the table pulsed, and every screen in the room displayed the same message. Human ships had surrounded every major Concord world. Not attacking, just waiting. Your 48 hours are up, Hayes stated. What's your answer? The silence in the chamber was absolute. Finally, Xylox spoke. How do we know this isn't a bluff? That your forces are as extensive as you claim? Hayes smiled faintly. You don't. That's the point. You can risk the lives of trillions on the chance that I'm exaggerating, or you can accept that the balance of power has shifted. Ambassador Thela, who had been silent until now, moved forward. The attempted genocide of humanity was before my time, before most of our times. We've been raised with a sanitized history, taught that humans were dangerous aggressors who left us no choice. She looked directly at Hayes. If we agree to your terms, if we acknowledge the truth and rebuild with human participation, what guarantee do we have that you won't seek further retribution in the future? None, Hayes answered honestly. Just as we have no guarantee that the Concord won't try to finish what it started 5 centuries ago. Trust must be earned on both sides. Thela nodded slowly. Then perhaps that's where we begin. General Drax slammed his fist down. This is surrender. We cannot. This is survival. Krell cut him off. Just as the humans survived us, now we must learn to survive with them. The debate raged for hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. With human ships positioned throughout Concord space and their technological superiority demonstrated beyond question, the choice was clear: adaptation or extinction. 3 days later, High Arbiter Xylox stood before the Grand Assembly. The chamber was filled beyond capacity, with representatives from every Concord world in attendance. Beside him stood Admiral Hayes, her presence a physical reminder of humanity's return. For 5 centuries, Xylox began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We have lived with a lie. We have celebrated peace while ignoring the atrocity that purchased it. Today, that changes. The official acknowledgement of the Concord's crimes against humanity was broadcast across the galaxy. The truth, hidden for generations, was finally revealed. Humanity had not been aggressors, but had simply refused to subordinate their sovereignty to Concord authority. The attempted genocide had been a preemptive strike, born of fear and arrogance. As Xylox concluded the formal apology, Admiral Hayes stepped forward. 500 years ago, humanity stood alone against the combined might of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. We were divided then, unprepared for the scale of the threat against us. That will never happen again. She paused, surveying the assembled delegates. But we did not emerge from the ashes of our world seeking only vengeance. We came to reclaim our place in the galaxy and to ensure that what happened to us never happens to another species. The Concord was founded on noble principles, but it lost its way through fear and the corruption of power. Together, we can build something better. The dissolution of the old Concord and the formation of the new Galactic Alliance began immediately. Human representatives joined the Transitional Council, bringing with them technologies and perspectives that had evolved in isolation for centuries. Not all accepted the new order willingly. Some Concord hardliners attempted resistance, only to discover that human intelligence had anticipated their moves. Others fled to the outer systems, vowing to restore the Concord's former glory. But for most, the integration proceeded more smoothly than anyone had expected. Humanity's return had been shocking, but their restraint and victory earned reluctant respect. They could have destroyed the Concord utterly, but had chosen a different path. 6 months after the first human ship had revealed itself to the reconnaissance fleet, Admiral Hayes stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Alliance headquarters, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go in the busy space lanes. Ambassador Thela joined her luminescent tendrils glowing softly in the dim light. "The transition reports are encouraging," she noted. "Cultural exchange programs are oversubscribed, and the technology integration teams are making remarkable progress." Hayes nodded. "Humans adapt quickly. It's how we survived." "There's still fear," Thela admitted. "Some believe this is merely the first phase of a longer revenge." "Fear is natural," Hayes replied. "It will take generations for true trust to develop. But this," she gestured to the bustling activity visible through the viewport, "this is a beginning." "Was there ever a moment," Thela asked hesitantly, "when humanity considered complete retaliation? When you thought about doing to us what was done to you?" Hayes was silent for a long moment. "Yes," she finally admitted. "In the darkest days after the attack, when we were hiding in the ruins of our world, the desire for vengeance consumed many of us. But time grants perspective. 5 centuries gave us the space to understand that becoming like those who tried to destroy us would be the true defeat." She turned to face Thela directly. "Make no mistake, we returned prepared for war. But we also returned hoping for something better." As they stood together watching the new alliance take shape, Hayes reflected on humanity's journey. From near extinction to resurgence, from victims to architects of a new galactic order, it was a transformation no one could have predicted in the ashes of Earth's fall. The message that had begun it all, "We remember," had been both warning and promise. Humanity remembered its near destruction, but also remembered what it meant to be human, resilient, adaptable, and ultimately, hopeful for a better future among the stars. The reckoning had come, but it had brought with it the possibility of redemption, not just for those who had nearly destroyed humanity, but for humanity itself.